Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Azaria Sakinah Ramadhani Nixon, and today I will explain about the single phonogram that will have more than one sound and the example. So for the first single phonogram will have more than one sound is A letter. A letter have five sound. The first one is A. A is most frequently said if followed by a consonant within the same syllable. For example, is man. Second is A. A usually said when at the end of syllable. For example, is navy. An A can say if a silent E at the end of the word. For example, is make. An A cannot say at the end of the word, so we can replace it with A. For example, is they. Second is A. A may say if followed by two consonants, for example is last. Fourth is O, mostly said if followed by L or LK, for example is tall and walk. And the fifth is E. E is often said after W or W letter, for example is was. The next is C letter. C letter have two sounds, is K and S. So, K is mostly used if there is no letter following to make it say S. For example, is tractor, or no possibility of an ending make it say S. And the second is S. S is followed by A, I, or Y. Is always say as S. For example, is sand, city, and cycle. Next letter is A letter. A letter have a two sound, is E and E. A is followed by a consonant within the same syllable, for example is N. Second is E. E is usually said at the end of syllable, for example is me. And sometimes A is silent at the end of the word, for example is give or blue. G letter have two sound, is G and J. We can say G if there is no letter who make it say J. For example is go. And the second is J. J may say if followed by A, I, and Y. For example is gentle, gist, and gerate. The next letter is I. I have two sound. The first one is E. We can say E if they follow it by consonant within the same syllable. For example is hit. And the second, we can say I at the end of syllable but usually say E. For example is silent. I may say when there is a silent E at the end of the word. For example is like. And then I we can say before the consonant. For example is fine. And the English word may not at the end of E, so we can replace it with Y. Is used most often is place. For example is cry. The next is O letter. O letter have a four sound. The first one is O. O is followed by consonant within the same syllable. For example is lot. Second is O. O is usually said at the end of syllable. For example is project. O can say if a silent E at the end of the word, for example is hope. And sometimes we can say before two consonant, for example is most. Third is U. We can say if the beginning and the end of the word is the consonant, for example is moon. Fourth is A. For example is knowledge. And sometimes O is used to say as the sound A before V and D. For example is love and other. Next is S letter. S letter have two sound, is S and Z. So S is often double at the end of one syllable, word following a single vowel. For example is sit. And the second is Z. Z may never sing at the beginning of the word, so Z is say at the end of the word. and followed by a vowel sound or voiced consonant sound. For example, is says. The next is U letter. U letter may not in the end of the word. So U letter have a first sound. The first is A, and it is usually say followed by a consonant within the same syllable. For example, is cat. Second is U. U may say at the end of syllable. For example, is music. U can say if the silent E at the end of the word. For example, is rule. The third is U. U can say after G, G, L, R, S, Y, and Z. For example, is usual. And the fourth is U. You can say U after B, C, D, F, H, M, N, P, T, and V. For example, is pat. X letter. X letter have two sounds, is x and z. And we can say x at the end of the word. For example, is a fox. And we can say z at the beginning of the word. For example, is xylophone. The last word is Y letter. Y letter have three sounds, is J, E, and I. So we can say J as the consonant at the beginning of the word. For example, is yellow. And then we can say E as a vowel because they have the same function and sound with E and I at the end of the word. For example, is happy. And then the third is I. We can say I at the end of the word to replace the E or Y letter too. For example, is cry. All for me, thank you. Hope you guys understand. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.